Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, the name of the song is called Spacewalk Master by Punch Deck. Okay, so I got a really good response from, I believe it was Lisa. Let me double check here. Yeah. So she essentially says, I'm only 9 minutes into the video. She's watching Perception Creates Reality. I'm only 9 minutes into the video, but what you said about shame reminds me of what my father wrote in his suicide note. It said, do not let anyone shame you for what I've done. He was shamed by his whole family, his whole life, generational curse, question mark. So, yes, the answer really is, it is a generational curse. There's two things I want to say. So, I guess the most important thing I want to make sure I say right now is the whole goal of my videos has essentially came down to the very, very number one core piece right here where she left off, where Lisa talks about shame. Because what shame does is it puts you in a state of fear and it closes you off from your right brain. That's the doorway to God. If your door to the right brain is closed, you are disconnected from God, and that's literally the definition of sin, to close off from. Now, all of this started in the Garden of Eden when the serpent tricked Adam and Eve, okay? So here's the purpose. The purpose of this video, the purpose of all the videos I've made, is to make it really super clear what happened. Because Pastor Rex, he talked about this, it's called the original sin. It's when that artery in the lower reptilian brain gets narrow, and that's done out of shame, guilt, or any form of fear. That will close you off from your right brain. That's why narcissists use every tactic in the book to shame you, to hurt you and sting you emotionally. That's why a lot of you, your solar plexus tightened up. So when you deal with what I call the final narcissist attack that wakes you up, like you really see it, I got like a sting in my solar plexus. I call it like a giant wasp sting because, man, it literally felt like a sting, and it was there for a long time. And during that time, I was closed off from my right brain. Now, how I know is because all the colors of life left. The music was bland, food was bland, and I literally, for the first time in my life, felt like, oh, there is no God. It felt like that was just a myth, like it was just a fantasy. But when I opened back up to my right brain, boom, my intuition came back, my awareness came back, everything came back, even my connection to God. See, here's the deal. A lot of people are like, well, what book did you read this in? I didn't read this in a fucking book. I experienced it. So, actually, I did read this in a book called the Bible, and I've heard it a lot in church. I've read it a lot in the Bible over and over. But until I really had that physical, I think the word visceral experience, I didn't understand it on a level that I understand it now. So when I went through that dark phase of life just seemed boring. It was dark. It was negative. It was just like there was no light, there was no love, there was no emotions, no feelings. The five senses, which is the right brain. It was such a horrible experience to be cut off from the right side of life to spirit, that it was complete total darkness. Well, of course this is sin. It literally means to be cut off from, or to close off from. So when a narcissist can get you to hurt emotionally so bad, to feel shame so bad that it stings in your gut. What's the name of that nerve? Oh man, I want to call it the vagus nerve. I forget what it is, but that thing tightened all the way up, and it closes you off from the right brain. Thus, you're living in sin. Now, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. See, that's the thing. You got to be careful. I'm not sitting there going, well, if you did that, then you're a sinner. No, the word, see, the definition and the meaning that people give that word is not even the definition of the word. It literally means to be cut off from. So that's the narcissist's goal, is to cut you off from your connection with God by cutting you off from your right brain, to close that door and to hide in your logic, in your logical left brain. See, the whole goal here of this video and all my videos is to free you, because you are always free. What you're going through is an illusion of the mind. So in the last week or 2 or 3 weeks, I've been making videos about what I call complex equivalent, cause effect. These are something in it. There's more, but these are what we call presuppositions in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So during our training, we learn about these things. Another one is existence. So you can trick people's minds to believe something merely by the way you talk about it, okay? And so a complex equivalence is essentially when it has any kind of pattern of if-then. Well, if this happens, then that means that. And the funny thing, it doesn't mean that at all. Okay, so Lisa brought up the phrase generational curse. Okay, so it's funny because I'm gonna find a really direct way to get your brain to make the connection versus, because I've tried to explain this stuff and I realized, like, how do I explain this in a way that your brain, it clicks and then you pop out of it? Living free of shame, living free of fear or guilt. If you do this, that means that. That doesn't mean that at all. See, there's cause and effect is this causes that, okay? This is another presupposition. It presupposes something, okay? So someone comes along and says, if you do that, that's going to cause this. And you go, oh, okay, then I won't do that. And so you just automatically accept something without stopping and going, well, wait a minute, how is that going to make that happen? Like that, there's no connection there. But your brain assumes, oh, that must be true just because of the patterned way that it was used. Like a complex equivalent, again, which is if then, if you do this, then that's going to happen. Or this means that, okay? That's another complex equivalence. I like to use that one because it's simpler. So it assumes that this is going to happen if you do this, and that doesn't necessarily mean that. So I made up one where, and the funny thing is, what I started to do is I ask people, where does it actually say that in the Bible? And they're like, and they don't, because essentially they've learned it from someone else in the pews, people that like to make stuff up. So one thing that I made up is, so a lot of people will say, and I literally made up at the drop of a hat, is a lot of people say don't take the Lord's name in vain, and the assumption, this is an if-then complex equivalent. So you don't even have to say the second part if you know the subject well. So if you've gone to church a lot, right? That's one subject. Could be about anything. So the assumption is that means you're going to, see right there, that means this means that, that means this. That means you're going to go to hell, or that means you're a sinner. Well, here's the thing. The definition of the word take the Lord's name in vain, the actual original language means don't go off like soldiers and kill other people in war and then say, oh, that's because of God. That's taking the Lord's name in vain, claiming we're going to conquer these people in the name of God. So we're going to kill them and slay them and harm them in the name of God. That's what God means when he says, don't take my name in vain. In other words, don't go kill people and say it's in the name of the Lord. That's not on God. That's on you. It's funny, unlock your hidden potential. That's been on there for a while. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to unlock something here. It's the same thing Jesus was doing. So then I said, so a lot of people will say, God bless it. And I'll say, wow, why do you say that in such an intensely passionate and angry way? And I'll say, well, I don't want to take the Lord's name in vain. I don't want to say, God damn it. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm going to say, so why do you do that? Well, because this way I'm not taking the Lord's name in vain. I go, but you're still angry, right? They're like, well, yeah, of course I'm angry. And you're using this in replacement of saying, God damn it. And to you, this means that. To you, this means you're taking the Lord's name in vain. They're like, yeah. I go, well, do you realize that even though you're replacing it with the word bless, the intention behind it is still the same intention of God damn it? And that means you're taking the Lord's name in vain. And they're like, oh, I didn't realize that. Well, you didn't realize it because I just made it up. It's false. It's fake. I made it up. See, a lot of you have essentially been gaslit by a lot of other people who, I'm even going to go to the extent, I'm going to give them forgiveness. And here's what I mean by this. These people were gaslit from a young age in church, from childhood, and this is what they've heard. And someone said, well, if you say this, that means that. That means you're a sinner. That means you're going to go to hell. I mean, you could literally say, if you say this is an orange, even though it is an orange, that means you're going to go to hell. That doesn't mean you're going to go to hell at all. Like, who's making this stuff up? Everybody. The most dangerous part about the Bible is it's a very complex book. And it's overwhelming. So one of the gifts that my pastor gave me was, he told me to go buy a King James Bible Word Book, and he told me to buy a King James Bible with the, let me grab it, hold on. Alright, I got it. So he goes, okay, the other thing I want you to buy is the Hebrew Greek Key Study Bible, the King James Version. And I'm actually reading off right off the spine, and it says, with the Strong's Dictionary and Word Studies Concordance, and get the Zedhades, okay, book. Now in this, it's real simple. At the very back, it has a dictionary for the Old Testament and a dictionary for the New Testament. So you can look up what every word means back then, when it was written. So in that time, what did this word mean in that language, in that specific region? So you got to understand, words change meaning over time. For example, in the 70s, I bought these blue suede Puma tennis shoes, and I saved up for months and months and months, and I really sacrificed. These were, at the time, they were really expensive shoes in the 70s, right? They were like $85, and that's like probably like a $200, $300 pair of shoes now. They were just expensive for a little kid to buy them. It was a big deal. Well, my brother just came back from the West Coast in Hawaii. He lived out there with my father for a couple of years. We lived in the Midwest at the time, and he goes, Michael, and this is the first day I wore them. He goes, Michael, those shoes are bad. And I go, what do you mean they're bad? And I almost cried. He goes, those shoes are bad. I'm like, why? What's wrong with them? He goes, no, they're bad. And I'm basically crying. And my other brother goes, no, he means they're really good. I'm like, what? I go, well, why didn't he just say that? And then my older brother again goes, those shoes are bad. And I'm about to cry, and I didn't understand. And so my other brother was trying to get me to understand, like, no, the definition he's giving to that word actually means good. Now, as a little kid, I was like, I don't know, 9, 10 years old. That just confused the hell out of me. I just walked out of the room going, God, that's like, you're not making any sense. All right, so the other book he had me buy was a big, thick, it's called the Vine's Complete Expository Dictionary of Old and New Testament Words. So here's my point. You don't have to, if you want to, you should get these things, because when you look up the definition of words and phrases and meanings and what they meant during that time in that region. See, here's another thing. The same word could have a slightly different meaning in a different region, in an area of that part of the world. Now, I dealt with Narcissist my whole life, but I didn't understand it until about 5 years ago what was going on. I felt this intense level of shame. And it was kind of weird because I was onto the games. I'd heard them and seen them before, and NLP gave me a really solid background in linguistics and communication to be able to see this stuff. And yet, something in my gut was just stinging. And I was like, what is this? And essentially I noticed like I couldn't think clearly, like everything was foggy, everything was black and white. It was hard to think, and it was because I was shut down. It was neurologically that it lowers that when you, what they do is they shame you to put you in a state of fear. When you're in a state of fear, that artery's job is to lower and narrow to keep the blood in your body, in your muscles, for fight and flight, so you can run fast or fight strong. When it opens up and allows blood up into the human brain, it takes some blood away from your muscles, and it also allows blood to go into your intestines in order to digest. Okay, this is when you're relaxed. So when you do that, your intestines hold more blood than any body part, such as your thighs, your legs, your glutes, or whatever, than any other body part in your body. that's a lot of blood being taken away from your muscles for fight and flight. So the only way the lower reptilian brain will release the artery, by the way, your lower reptilian brain is in control of that artery. So the number one priority, it's literally programmed into that lower reptilian brain, is the number one is to keep you alive, period, end of sentence, okay? So let's say you're about to step off the curb on a corner street, right? And all of a sudden something pulls you back and you're thinking, what the hell? Like you literally sometimes think somebody must have grabbed you from behind and pulled you. And then all of a sudden, boom, a bus goes right in front where you were just about to step and it misses you by like 1.5 feet, right? And you're like, holy shit, I almost died. Well, that's your reptilian brain's job, is to keep you alive, even if it has to do it unconsciously outside of your awareness. Its number two job, which is connected to number one job, is to procreate or recreate, to keep the human species alive, to keep us going. So number one is keep you alive. Number two is to mate. So this is why they call it the fight or flight brain, because its number one job is to keep you alive either by running away or by being strong and standing your ground and fighting if you don't have any other choice. Now, the one way that it does it is it lowers that artery, which cuts off the blood supply to the brain, and it also takes blood from your intestines and it shoves it into your muscles to make you stronger to fight and faster to run. So this brain can override your larger human brain because it has to keep you alive. So this brain has, it's funny because it's the lowest brain, yet it has the highest prerogative. So in these situations, it gets to override the king and the queen. Call it your left and right brain, okay? Even though it's the lower brain. Now the challenge is, when you take the blood supply from your left and right hemisphere, your higher thinking regions, okay, we'll call it that, higher functioning, and also your social regions, you don't deal very well socially with people, okay? You deal with people instinctually, and a lot of people are still walking around being very instinctual like an animal, fight or flight, kill or be killed, and that's how they deal with each other. And that is how narcissists are dealing with human beings. They see everything as a battle, everything is a challenge, everything is a conflict, and everything is I have to win at all costs. This is division. So if society, the government, or whoever can keep you in a state of fear, that artery is going to narrow, thus cutting you off from your higher functioning regions, and thus not allowing you to socialize in a more peaceful way, in a way that we can find solutions for everyone. The lower reptilian brain does not find solutions. It's literally kill or be killed, and that's it. It's either me or you, he or she, they or it. Okay, there's no us, there's no we. That's a right brain function. So when I was talking about complex equivalences in the past, I realized I never really made the connection to that's exactly what the serpent was doing to you in the garden. So what you notice about narcissists, they will literally make up words if they have to. Like they'll make up a word out of clean, thin air. There's just poof. And then they'll say, and this means that. That's literally exactly what the serpent did in the garden. So the serpent came along and said, essentially, in chapter 3, so okay, and I'm going to repeat it. So in chapter 2, the very last verse, I believe it's verse 25, Genesis 2:25, it says they were naked and they were not ashamed. So they were naked in the garden with God, and it says they were not ashamed. And I always thought, well, why would they tell us that if they weren't ashamed? That doesn't make any sense. And about the 15th time I read that, or maybe 20th, I went, wait a minute, I have a feeling in the next chapter something's going to make a connection to this. And lo and behold, it did. In the next chapter, chapter 3, they ate of the fruit, and the serpent comes along and tells them that they were naked. Okay? Now here's the deal. They didn't know what naked was. Because as you read later on, so essentially it says they were naked, and so they tried to cover up. Now that's symbolic for covering up your right brain. Okay, that's being exposed, that's being vulnerable when you're in your right brain. That's essentially that's what the symbology is. They covered up with fig leaves or whatever, right? So they were in the garden, and it says, and they hid. That, and again, that symbolically means hiding from your right brain. God comes into the garden, and it says something like the cool of the day, the cool of the morning, or something like that. And actually, no, I'm just going to read it off. All right, so Genesis 3:8. And they heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves. They hid what? Themselves, meaning yourself. Remember what I've taught you in the past? The right brain is the self brain. It's the internal brain. So they're literally hiding from themselves. The left brain is the mechanical, logical brain. It's about business and science. That's not the human brain. You are your right brain. That's what your self is. I've been teaching this for over 25 years, never making this connection to the Bible. It literally says, God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. What does the word present mean? How many times have we heard women say to men, just be in the moment, be in the present moment? Because when you're in the present moment, it opens you up to your right brain. This is all about the right brain, all of it. So verse 9, it says, and the Lord God called unto Adam and said unto him, where art thou? Verse 10, and he said, this is Adam, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. He hid what? He hid himself. He hid the self. Now here's a really interesting part. In verse 11, God says, and God said, who told thee that thou wast naked? Well, who was in the garden with them? The serpent. This is exactly what the narcissist does to you. Is they will sit there and use things like cause and effect, presupposition. Now the word presupposition means it presupposes, okay? And they also use complex equivalent. Well, this means that, or this doesn't mean that. You can also do it in reverse order. All right, watch this. So me, my ex-girlfriend, and her coworker, I can't remember her name, but we're walking into the mall, and I said, Kollin didn't know that on top of the mall there is a helicopter pad for helicopters to land in case of emergencies. So she kind of looked up and she looked at me and she goes, oh, I didn't know that she didn't know that. So this complex equivalence, this cause and effect, these presuppositions. Now this is a presupposition of existence. So in order to understand a sentence, you have to presuppose that there's a helicopter pad. So your brain goes, oh, there's a helicopter pad. Oh, okay. And it blindly accepts it without challenging, going, wait a minute. How do you know there's a helicopter pad? Wait a minute. I'm going to go ask the administration. Wait a minute. I'm going to go up the stairs and I'm going to take a look for myself to see if there is a helicopter pad. See, we presuppose a lot of things. She just blindly accepted what I said. Now, I did it just because I thought, oh, this stuff can't be real. Now, there was no harm. It's not like it hurt or anything. But I remember watching her just blindly accept that. And I thought, God, that is so weird how human beings do that. And I started to realize, like, hell, how many times have I done this? See, here's the deal. The people in the pews were gaslit by someone else. And they will gaslight you, not necessarily even knowing that they're gaslighting you by saying, well, this means that. So number one, they didn't know they were naked in the garden until the serpent came along and says, hey, you're naked, cover up. And not only that, but it gave them the definition. Naked means that's shameful. That's wrong. You should feel ashamed. It literally made the connection. This means that. And they presupposed and blindly accepted the presupposition of, oh, naked is bad, naked is shame. Oh, okay. So then we covered up or hid from our right brain, and thus we disconnected from God. And that is what they mean when they say sin. You were cut off from God. Here's the worst part about it. None of it's even real. Okay, there's a part I didn't clarify. You have to understand there was no word for being naked before this. They were in the garden and they were naked. And it says they were not ashamed because they were oblivious to it. They didn't know. It's like a cat and dog walking around. Do you go, oh my God, that dog's naked, cover him up? No, they walk around with their genitals hanging out, and nobody gives a shit. Nobody even notices. And here's the deal. This is the number one technique or tactic of a narcissist, is to literally make words up, or to take words out of sentences or add words to sentences to change meanings, saying this means that. And therefore, once your unconscious mind accepts that, it goes, oh, okay, well, this means that. And boom, you just go along with it. It's not only to change meanings, but it's also to make up meanings that never existed before. They just said, oh, well, this means that. Now, whenever someone says that, I say, well, how do you know? Who says? So this is what the serpent did to us in the garden, was he convinced us that by being open emotionally, that was considered what he called naked, which is a new word that was made up right then. And they're like, oh, what's naked? And then he said, well, what that means is that's shameful. You know, you don't have clothes on, you're not covered up, okay? So the serpent is the master of getting you to hide from your emotions, is the master of getting you to hide from your right brain. We are in a world right now where most people are completely disconnected from their emotions and their feelings. I mean, look at what I wrote here. I wrote this on Facebook about probably 5 months ago or something. Every law that was made was literally made up. Everything. Did you know that every college and university at one point never existed? Some people got together and made an agreement. Hey, we're going to make these rules, we're going to make these tests, and we're going to make these standards. Everything was made up. I'm not necessarily saying they're all bad, but I want to give you clarity on life. If you can realize, like, every tax, every law, every rule, they were completely randomly made up by someone you never even heard of or met. Okay, so the serpent comes along and literally makes a word up and then adds a definition and says this means that. It does not mean that. They walked around in the garden completely open to their five senses, their emotions, their feelings, see, hear, feel, smell, and taste all the time. The right brain is the creative brain. It's the emotional brain. It's the creative, emotional, spiritual brain. That's the brain where you connect to God, where you connect to spirit and truth. Now, this one event, let me go back to one more thing. So it's just like, you have to remember, like, the serpent, or whatever you want to call it, literally makes things up. Like, instead of saying the love of money is the root of all evil, the love of money is as if you put it above your God, you put it above your family, you put it above your happiness, you put it above your health, and you worship it essentially. Like, this is my number one goal, right? No, your number one goal when it comes to money is, what's the purpose for it? Well, it's to feed my children. It's to put a roof over their head, to get them educated, to get them to buy a safe car that can get them from point A to point B. Now, there's nothing wrong with having really good cars or a really good home or $1 million home or nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's only wrong. See, right there, the serpent already screwed something up there. Like, because a lot of you feel like, oh, I got to have like a broken down car. I got to live in a home where there are holes in the roof where it's not worth anything. No, God wants you to have valuable things that are literally of value to you. So the serpent came along, and let's read what it says here, how life starts to feel once I realize that I'm worthy of everything I desire. See, the serpent has convinced you that you're not worthy of the love of God. You're not worthy of God's presence. You're just not worthy, period. And God's coming along saying, whoa, what are you talking about? You are my children. You are absolutely worthy. God gave his only begotten Son to die for you so you could open back up to the glory of life, to the beauty of life. God created this experience, this world, this earth, this solar system, this universe, because God wanted us to live in this sense of absolute awe and admiration and wonder. Life was meant to be this wonderful experience. Well, the serpent, otherwise known in modern times as the narcissist, comes along and changes the meanings to word and makes up words and then says this is what this word means, and we just blindly accept it. Like my girlfriend's coworker, I said, hey, Kimon doesn't know that there's a helicopter pad on the top of the mall for emergencies. And she goes, and she looks up for a second as we're walking. She goes, oh, I didn't know that she didn't know that, which meant she blindly had to assume the presupposition of existence, meaning she presupposed in order to understand the sentence, oh, there's a helicopter pad on the roof. Now that was over 25 years ago, maybe even 30 years ago. I bet if I found that girl today and said, hey, did you know that there's a helicopter pad on the top of the roof? She would automatically, without even realizing why or remembering our conversation, say, yeah, I know that. And then I could take her up to the top of the roof and say, actually, there's not. There never has been. And then remind her of that conversation we had. She'd be like, oh, I just blindly accepted what you said. Yeah. So, money is not the root of all evil. It doesn't mean that. That's not what it means. And being naked or open emotionally, well, that's not shameful. That's not what that means either. Did you see what I just did? I literally reversed it. That's all I did. So the serpent said this means that, and I'm saying this doesn't mean that. I'm just reversing it. I'm still using the same pattern. The complex equivalent pattern. So if I wouldn't have told you that, you would have been like, oh wow, I'm free. I probably shouldn't have told you. So here's the deal. Lisa shared with us how her father committed suicide because of shame. And how in his letter to her he wrote, don't let them shame you for me doing this. It's not your fault. So this is what people will do. And you know, okay, I had a best friend when I was a kid, when we lived in the Midwest in Wisconsin. And his name was Andy Davis. And his father killed himself. His father owned an ice cream store downtown. And he had 12 children. And they were all living in this big 2-story home. And kind of wild and chaotic. Some of his sisters were really wild and chaotic, but fun, very good people. Well, long story short, the business started to slow down, and the father didn't know how he was going to take care of his children. So after years and years of pressure of basically cutting corners and trying, working overtime, etc., he finally killed himself because he felt so ashamed that he couldn't take care of his own children. Now think about that for a minute. How many people are not only killing themselves, but they are hiding from life? They're not going to college because they're ashamed. They're not taking speech class in high school or college because they're too embarrassed. They didn't join that band. They didn't join the choir. They didn't sing to their fullest. They kind of hid in the background. They were in choir, but they kind of blended in. They didn't sing out. They didn't sing to their full potential. They didn't take acting classes. They didn't go to college and take college writing. They didn't take writing classes. They didn't do what they wanted to do with their life. And do you know why? Because someone came along and literally said, this means that. You are this. You did this, and this means that. It's a load of bullshit. This doesn't mean that, and that doesn't mean this. And yet your unconscious mind, just like my girlfriend's friend, just blindly accepted, oh, there's a helicopter pad. Yeah, and you know, that's what she said. She looked at me, she said, oh, I didn't know that there was a helicopter pad on the roof of the mall. By the way, they both worked at the mall at the time. And by the way, just to be clear, there is no helicopter pad on the roof of the mall. I made it up. And so did the person that told you money is the root of all evil. It does not say that in the Bible. They took off the first 3 words of that sentence, the love of, which means to worship, to put above your happiness, health, family, God, spirit, truth, everything. Now here's the deal. When I work with clients, I teach them these internal awareness techniques, okay? And all of a sudden, poof, the shame is completely gone. The fear is completely gone. Because what it does is it opens you up to the right brain, which brings you into the present moment. Wait a minute, hold on. My detective radar is activated. This said, didn't something say this in the Bible? Genesis 3 verse 8. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in, by the way, see, hear, feel, walking is a feeling, walking, see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. And they heard the voice of that's right brain, by the way. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. That's feeling. He's feeling the coolness of the day. That's a feeling, the five senses. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. Fascinating. So what I'm saying is opening up. This is all about opening up to the right brain. The right brain is the present moment. This is why when you're dating a girl or woman or whatever, they're like, well, just be yourself. Well, what does that mean? That means to open up to your right brain. So men hear this from women all the time, and we're like, and when we're in our logical brain, we're like, I am being myself. What are you talking about? I am Robotron. That is myself. I am being myself. When they're totally, completely, absolutely disconnected from their self. The right brain is the self. I have a client right now who I'm working with, and I'm trying to explain this to him because he's such a logical guy, but he's so used to, and this is not unusual, this is a very male thing. He's so used to being in his logic, he thinks, well, what are you talking about? This is myself. This is what I normally feel and see and hear and smell and taste. But when I open him up to his right brain, he's going to be like, holy shit, I didn't know that this existed. So the whole purpose of sharing all of this with you is to say one single little tiny thing. People are not going after their dreams. They're not living their life to the fullest. They're not enjoying life to the fullest. Even when they eat food, they shut down because it's like, well, I'm not allowed to enjoy this food, even though it was made by God. You know, when I open people up to the right brain, especially men, when they taste food after that, they're like, oh, like I'll give them the same piece of chocolate I've been giving them, a Hershey's, a cheap $1.50 Hershey's candy bar from the local corner gas station, the crummy, cruddy, yucky gas station. And I break it up in pieces so they not only can they not read it, they don't even know that there's letters on it. So they've been, kind of munching on it. And then after they open up to the right brain, I was about to say, wake up, because that's what it means. And then give it to them. They're like, oh my God, this is so delicious. This is amazing. And they're like, is this like that expensive German or French chocolate? And I'm like, nope, just the same chocolate I've been giving you every day. And like, there's no way. No, this is different. I'm like, no, it's the same chocolate. And I'll grab another Hershey's bar. I'll show it to them. I'll unwrap it and I'll break it up into pieces. And I'll say, here, try it. And they're like, this is Hershey's? It's never. Is this like a special Hershey's candy bar? I'm like, same one you buy at the gas station for $1.50. All I'm saying is the entire reason and purpose why I got into the work that I do is to help people to achieve their potential, to live their potential, to go after their potential without any shame or fear or hurt or guilt or any of that bullshit. Now, here's the thing. All of those feelings that you feel, they're not real. I mean, like the shame and the guilt, and the fear, all of that is completely made up. And people go through lifetimes, an entire lifetime of limiting themselves because they're too afraid of being ashamed or a lot of times when you feel shame, if someone just looks in your direction, you feel the shame and you think, oh, they think this of me. Like, no, they're just looking at you. But because you're feeling that shame, you think that they're looking at you in a certain way when they're actually not. They're just looking at you as they walk by. That's all it is. But you think they're looking at you and they're trying to shame you or looking down on you, because when you're in that state of shame, that's what every experience connects to, even though it's not a real connection. Now, this whole goal of perfection, and I should say connected to right or wrong, good or bad, is completely man-made. It's not real. So you get a lot of Christians saying, oh, you've got to be perfect, or you're not worthy because you're not perfect. And therefore they set the goal of, well, you're not going to get to heaven until you're perfect. It's like this constant shaming Whereas every Christian will also tell you, well, it's the good news. Jesus came and cleansed you of your sins, and the sins are washed away. And yet they continually shame you, and you're like, well, wait, I don't understand. What am I being shamed for? What's going on here? It's because they don't understand the Bible. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand. They just blindly listen to the serpent. All right, my purpose for sharing that is to free you of all shame and guilt. So you can just open up to your creativity, open up to your intuition, open up to socializing with people, open up to just going out and living your life. See, God never said you had to be perfect. That is a man-made fallacy. All right, you got to understand, think of it like this. You're a child of God. God's saying, hey, why don't we teach you how to ride a bicycle now that you're 4.5 years old? And you're like, oh, okay. And it's not like, oh, you crashed, you fell. Oh, you're a sinner, I'm sending you to hell. No, God's just going, okay, come on, let's get back up here. Let me rub your elbow and your knee that you bumped on the ground. It's okay, it's okay. See, God is just helping you to learn, to develop, to get better at the things that you want to get better at. The idea that this was turned into, if you don't ride the bike perfectly, you're a sinner and you're not worthy of God or heaven or the Lord's love, is a crock of bullshit. How much better would you do if you didn't have any fear, shame, or doubt? You would do a lot better at everything. And not only that, the more important part is you would actually enjoy the process of learning how to play the guitar, of learning how to sing, of learning how to act, of learning how to write, of learning how to, develop a business and build a business. Like, it would become a fun, exciting place to be. That's what I'm saying. It would be about options and possibilities. It wouldn't be about, oh, the struggle is real. Well, yeah, if you do that, you make it struggling like that. It's not struggle, it's fun, it's potential, it's like seeing how far you can go. See, what if you looked at everything in the perspective of, let's see how far I can go with this, let's see how good I can do, versus, oh, if I don't make $1 million a month, I'm a failure. One thing about my dad was a super athlete. He got drafted to the pros right out of high school. It was a pretty incredible thing, right? He was phenomenal at sports. And there was a lot of jealous people. So when I was growing up, I actually had 3 teachers give me detention every single day. First day of school, we moved back to Napa. I never even met these people. And the only reason why they knew me was because of my last name. And they hated my dad because they were jealous. I remember in 8th grade, Mr. Anderson gave me detention. It was written out the first day before class started, before I even got to class. He must have read my name on the list of students for that class. Oh, I'm going to write this guy detention. And when I walked in, he goes, are you Mr. Kollin? I said, yes, sir. He goes, come up to the desk, please. I said, yes, sir. And he goes, this is for you. And I'm like, what's this? He goes, it's a detention. I'm like, for what? I just got here. He goes, oh, talking back to the teacher? That's 2 detentions. I go, but I didn't do anything. Oh, talking back to the teacher? You want to go for 3? I'm like, no, sir, no, sir. And so I sat down and I was quiet. And he goes, every day when you come into class, I'm going to have a detention up here for you. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? We just moved back from Wisconsin. I'd never met this teacher and didn't know him. Well, he did it. My 9th grade teacher and a 10th grade coach did this to me. And I was just like, what's going on? So individually, after I graduated from high school, when I bumped into them, they each told me they hated my dad. And I was like, well, what did my dad do? Did he beat you up? Did he hurt you? Like, no, not at all. Your dad was a very respectful gentleman. Your dad was very respectful and classy, etc. I'm like, I don't understand. What are you mad about? Your dad was so good in sports, blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the other part of it. My dad enjoyed playing sports. It was fun to him. It wasn't pressure. And because of that, he did really, really well at it. And these guys were just miserable in general about life. And so they didn't do good at anything. Do you see the correlation? So the whole Bible is about the original sin. Period. Adam and Eve in the garden, and God said, who told you that you were naked? Well, the serpent did. And then the serpent said, and that's shameful. So mankind started killing animals, slicing their throats, bleeding everywhere. I'm sorry I can be so graphic, but I'm being graphic on purpose. Thinking, oh, this is going to appease the gods, and God's going to be happy now. It's going to forgive us. And God's like, I never judged you. What are you talking about? I love you. You're my children. I just want to help you get up when you fall off your bicycle and skin your knee. I just want to make you feel good and teach you so you eventually can get good at riding a bike so you can have fun. Serpent comes along and says, no, you're a sinner. You're going to hell. God is judging you. God's mad at you. You're not worthy. So mankind essentially demanded the ultimate sacrifice. And God says, fine, I'll give you my son. This is how much I love you. This is how worthy you are. I'm going to give my only begotten son because this is how much I love you. This is how worthy that you are. But the serpent comes along and says, no, even after Jesus Christ was slain on the cross, it was tortured and beaten and bled to death, you're still not worthy. And God's just going, oh, come on. He goes, Mike, can you get down there and talk to those people for me? And I said, I did, God, but they won't listen. I said, oh, wait a minute. I got it, God. I can teach them complex equivalences. And then they'll realize that that's what happened. Their brain got tricked by someone said, this means that, and that means you're going to hell. And you're not worthy. Okay, are you guys finding the ridiculousness of this? That, like, God did it. Literally, God's just going, man, I have done everything in my power to get you to just open back up. Forget about you opening up to God. Just open up to your right brain and reconnect with yourself and taste that chocolate for the fullness of the flavor. Because life can be a wonderful experience. That's all I'm saying. That's all God's saying. That's all Jesus is saying. Is like, live your life. Live an awesome life. Have fun. Here's the really funny part. So I was teaching the Ben of how to open up to his right brain. He finally got it one day, and then we did it again. Then he did it again. And I said, now you need to go to a coffee shop and do it on your own. Just do the internal awareness techniques. You need to learn how to and develop the ability to do it in public. So he'd come back, I can't do it. I can only do it when I'm with you. So then I went out to the coffee shops with him. Okay, let's do it now. Let's ground together. Let's do the internal awareness techniques, blah, blah, blah. And he popped up. He's, oh, I'm there. I'm like, so we did it a few more times. And then one day he goes, Mike, I did it. No, I really, really did it. I'm like, cool, awesome. So then what happened was, he came over and he was in his thinking brain, meaning he was inside the tip and he couldn't get out. And he had a lot of anxiety and stress because you're focused on every little detail of it. See, when you're in the tip, you're focused. It's concentrated, dense energy, heavy energy. And everything is this big deal and he's stressed about everything, right? And he had really bad anxiety. I'm like, well, why don't you open up to your right brain? He goes, well, I'm afraid to. And I said, why? He goes, because then that's where the anxiety and fear is, and then I'm going to be afraid. I'm like, Abenev, what are you feeling right now? He goes, well, I have a lot of anxiety right now, Mike. I'm like, that's because you're tightened down. You're at the tip of the V. He goes, no, I'm afraid to open up to you. I go, Abenev, whenever I open you up, what does it feel like? He goes, well, now here's the deal. When you're in that state of fear, it feels like if you go over there, you're going to be in more of a state of fear when it's not. See, it's an illusion when you clamp down and lock down on this specific detail kind of thing, thinking it's going to help you. And I said, trust me, let me help you open up again, and then watch what happens. So we did some breathing techniques, and then I did some internal awareness techniques, helped him to ground himself emotionally, and he started to open. And then boom, it was like, oh, I feel so good now. And I go, so now, what do you think? He goes, man, it's so weird when I'm over at that, what you call the tip of the V, when he goes, that's where the fear is. I'm like, yes. I go, that's what I was trying to tell you. The fear is not on the open side. The fear is when you're locked down and clamped down. I go, the fear completely go, because so here he was, he goes, the fear's completely gone. I'm like, well, yeah, because you opened up to the wider end. So now, you don't just focus on this one little tiny speck of dirt on the carpet. Now you stand up and you have a broader range and everything's open where everything can flow and everything's more relaxed and neutral and everything starts to feel good. My message, my purpose for sharing this is those states of fear are an illusion. Fear of making money, having anxiety, stress, all of it, the shame, it literally is an illusion. It's because you're stuck at the tip of the V and you can't get out. What I'm trying to express to you is when we do these internal awareness techniques, these breathing techniques, it opens you up to the open end where you can walk out freely. It's always been there. This whole thing has been a horrible illusion that you've always had the ability to turn around and walk away from. This V thing that I'm using is when Jesus said to Peter or whoever it was, and he said, "Get behind thee, Satan." It was talking about turning this V around to where you're at the open end. You were always free. You just didn't realize you could walk away from this. All of this is about freedom: emotional freedom, mental freedom, physical freedom, spiritual freedom, freedom to create. Everything comes down to freedom. God says it, Jesus says it, it's all about freedom. But then you get these religious people. I mean, okay, I was just on Facebook and there was this girl on there and they were talking about this song and they go, "Oh, I like the song. You know, this is supposedly a Christian band, but I don't like that one phrase." And the phrase was freedom. And it's this young Christian woman, and she's talking about freedom from other people controlling her. And what are the very things these people are doing? They're trying to control her. "Oh, I don't really like that." You know, and literally, this Christian literally said it's about conforming. She might be a Christian, but she's not a follower of Christ. It's not about control freaks. It's not about slavery. Slavery is dead. It is over. It is gone. It is done. If anybody is guilt tripping you, shaming you, blaming you, trying to make you feel bad because you're trying to make money or trying to create your art or create your work or do something with your life or just be happy, guess what? They are not a child of God. I guarantee it. At the very least, they're not following God. They're following the other one. An easy way to tell is, do they allow you to have your own space? Do they allow you to have your own freedom? Are they supportive of who you are? The other way I can tell is the energy. Is it light and expansive, or is it focused and controlled? And the key word is like down at the tip of that V. Is it dense? Even the Bible says free will, but what a religious nut will change it into, well, yeah, but free will to do as you're told. See, rule-oriented people that are on the tip of the V, the denseness, that's about rules, structure, and organization. It's about control. They turn everything into a rule. Everything has to be either or, right or wrong, which we know is of the narcissist, which is of the serpent. The minute you hear that stuff, walk away. Don't even discuss it with them. Do you know why they're doing that to other people? Is because they're doing it to themselves, and therefore they want everyone to be held back the way they hold themselves back. Let go of them and move on. Alright guys, that's it for this video. God bless you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click subscribe, click the like button, go ahead and make a comment. And if you want to support this channel, you can do it in two ways. Either number one, make a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box. Or you can go ahead and buy one of my dating and relationship books. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Go to my website at mikekollin.com, MikeKollin.com.